Oh, where have you been, big man?
Out and about, you know.
I missed you, son. You find anything interesting?
It's strange country out there.
That it is.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hello? How do you start a podcast? I don't know how to start a podcast anymore. I haven't done it in a month, so I think it goes something like, oh, you got something?
No, I was gonna say I don't think I've ever done one effectively, so
I
have absolutely no help here.
Okay, but I think it goes like this. Hello there, and welcome to episode 61 of the video game podcast, PlayStation Pals. We are back to be in your earlobes to hear us talk about video games. I am your host, Nick, and I am joined by the Don to my Marcus, Jon. Now, Jon, how do you feel coming back?
Dude, I feel hyped up, man. Like I was telling some of the guys here at work that like I was a little more excited to jump into this one than normally. Just I think I'm feeling reinvigorated. I'm feeling fresh. Got some awesome things to talk about. And yeah, I'm ready to get this season 2 kicked off. I gotta say I didn't know if we were going to continue the number structure, if we were gonna Mortal Kombat this bitch and just go back to 1, but. We're at 61, man. Feeling great, feeling good.
Okay, all right, yeah, we have a lot to talk about, including catching up with us, and then what we're currently playing, and then a bunch of other things that have come up, and the future of the show. So we're just gonna get right into it, and I kind of want to catch up on things that did not happen because we were off. We took this break, and the first thing is Jon never got to review Final Fantasy XVI. We never did the bonus episode because of the break, and that's where Jon was going to review it. But now we're here, Jon. You beat the game. It kind of feels weirdly not relevant anymore because more games are coming out. But it did come up in the news this weekend, which we'll touch on in just a sec. But go ahead, Jon. Floor is yours. Review Final Fantasy XVI.
Yeah, man, it doesn't have turn-based game, so it's 1 out of 5. That's it. No. This game, so Final Fantasy 16, came out in late June for us. You nailed it, Nick. It is weird how I almost had to expel all of the things from my mind over the past month to make some room for this one again. Not because it was a knock against Final Fantasy 16, but we've just been inundated with new release after new release after big release lately. So got to get back in that Final Fantasy 16 mind frame. But man, what a game, Nick! What a game this was. I thoroughly enjoyed all of my time I spent with it. And so just to kind of start off here, to give everybody a little bit of background, I'm sure I've said it before, but my Final Fantasy experience is 10 is one of my favorites ever. And then I've also beaten 12, 7 remake, and then now 16. And I've bounced off of the OG 7, 9, 13, and 15. So I'm kind of a middle Final Fantasy level player, I would say. It's not my favorite series in the world, but it is able to reach a lot of the highs that, I look for when I play video games. So kind of made a pros and cons list to make this review as easy to digest as possible. But obviously want to start off with some of the strong things, and there are a lot. So this is probably gonna take up a lot of the time here. But so for those who know, the Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 16 took a step more into the grounded level of fantasy. You think of knights and lords and medieval things and dragons and stuff like that. And I thought that was a very, very appropriate place to take the franchise, especially if we're going to innovate and change a lot of the systems and things that are in place. Combat obviously being the major one, with the combat director who did Devil May Cry 5, Ryota Suzuki, him having his hand in a lot of the gameplay. You knew that it was going to change dramatically. So, kind of having a more grounded world with grounded characters felt like it fit right at home. But, when I think of this game, Nick, there's one thing that really stands out that I think this game not only did an amazing job at, but some of the best I've ever seen. And I'm just going to jump right into it, and that's the boss fights. I think the boss fights in this game are some of the best I've ever seen, at least specifically from a grandiose spectacle point of view. Really the only game that I would say comes close to this one in terms of just a spectacle of what I'm doing on screen is probably God of War 3. Like, that's the only one I can really think of where you are, specifically And I guess we probably should have said at the top here, this will be slight spoilers, so if you haven't beaten Final Fantasy XVI, you're still making your way through it, maybe consider skipping this or whatnot, because I will probably say, some things that you might want to save for yourself. Make sure you experience it in its true form. But when I think of the Titan boss fight, right? When I think of the Bahamut boss fight, these are things that start off and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm having a big grand scale fight, and then all of a sudden I'm flying in space fighting a space laser dragon, and it's just with the music, the way the music fits into everything, it's all such a spectacle, and I legit felt my jaw drop on the floor during some of these moments. I can't speak highly enough of the boss fights. Mechanically and technically, they're not anything too crazy, but it's sheer just like I got a controller in my hands and I am hooked to the TV for, no joke, 30 to 40 minutes, because these boss fights are not short. So first and foremost, boss fights, absolutely incredible. As I mentioned, the music. The music is phenomenal in many different ways. I was a little nervous going into this one because Nobuo Uematsu, who is the OG, one of the most famous musical composers in the video game space, he's basically done all of Final Fantasy's music since they started. But we got a new composer. I can't remember his first name. I know his last name's Soken. And he knocked it out of the park, man. Everything felt very appropriate with what was happening on screen. Obviously, with the grandiose style of these combat encounters, you need matching music, and they nailed it through and through with that as well. And I specifically want to shout out the Soken system, which I don't know if that's the official word or what they call it, but this is a system that they implemented into the game, which allows basically the computer or the game to read what's happening on the screen, and it will adjust the music accordingly. And I specifically think of the Bahamut boss fight. If you get towards the end of that boss fight, it's all ramping up. You've done all these crazy things, and you're gonna kind of have one final drive through Bahamut to end him. And the music culminates and ends perfectly the moment you fly through him, and it just really adds this extra layer to everything I'm experiencing to really get me more invested in the game. So obviously those two things knocking it out of the park. Combat. I think the combat was also of a very high caliber. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's absolutely perfect. I think there was a level of familiarity that you kind of found yourself getting into as you progress through the game, where you're kind of getting, you're unlocking these different icons throughout the game, and when you unlock them, you get different abilities that allow you to mix up your style of play and things like that. And it's all really fun. I liked doing that, but what you end up finding yourself kind of doing is just waiting for meters to refill. And so the way that the combat works in this game is you have, if memory serves me correctly, 6 different ultimate moves at any given time that are kind of on these timers, right? And so as they fill up, the circle fills up, you can use that move. It's going to immediately start refilling. As you get towards the later parts of the game, you're really just cycling through these. And so you find which ones you're comfortable with, you find which ones work for the encounter, and you just kind of go through it. But I gotta say, Nick, and I don't know if this is the same for you, I never lost engagement, though. I never felt like I was mad to get into a fight. In fact, I was happy every single time I came into an area and I got into a fight. So I'm kind of a little conflicted. I don't really know how to feel about that combat, in and of itself. I know I can say I enjoyed it, but I almost feel like there was an extra layer that I was kind of missing. But it's not too much of a fault of the game. Do you kind of feel similarly, or did you vibe with the combat through and through?
It definitely probably needed more depth as far as I think we've talked about status effects and just a better, more management instead of just it. Especially other people in your party, you just control Clive and Torgal if you want, but it's very you kind of get in kind of a rhythm. The rhythm feels great, but you're kind of just cycling through your moves, your special moves, and then doing the bigger ones. The big this game has exited my mind, so I'm forgetting a lot of the bigger, flashier moves.
I know.
But so you're just cycling through these your icon abilities. And then you're just wailing on them and doing perfectly timed dodges and whatnot, and then you just go through that cycle again. So there had to be something more, but it felt really good. So it never wore out its welcome. But I agree with you. I think there could have been some changes there to make you think a little bit more. Maybe think more about timing of certain moves or saving a move for a certain moment. As we can get into when we talk about Sea of Stars, is like, not feeling like you have to keep using all your moves all at once because you have to save stuff for what could happen, and I think this game never challenged you in that way.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I ever found myself really trying to manage was on top of a health meter, all enemies have a stagger meter as well. And anybody who's played video games knows exactly what that's going to do. So, you have your attacks, which are going to level or deal a certain amount of physical damage and a certain amount of stagger damage. And so I just kind of made sure I had like a good balance of that, because once you get that stagger meter down to half, it stuns the enemies. And then if you get all the way down to 0, you get you can save some of those big heavy hitting attacks to do at that time because you get a damage boost. But other than that, like you said, it could require more depth, but I was not upset with it. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I will note that made it very nice, that kind of went in tandem with the combat, is they allowed you to basically be very, very loosey-goosey with the skill tree, where you can basically reset your skills at any given time, reestablish the points into the skills you want. You can even lock down individual moves. So, like, there was one move that Garuda had that I loved, but I hated everything else Garuda had. So I would just lock that one ability. I could reset everything else. It got rid of all the points that I had into her because she was the only icon I had at the time for when. So when I unlocked Titan, I could take those points, and rinse and repeat. But again, I kind of found myself just initially going back to the things that I was comfortable with. And then lastly here, I won't touch too much on it because, I'll let everybody experience it for themselves, but very engaging narrative. I've said it many times on this show, what I look for in video games, narrative is not usually the main thing that draws me in, but it's a thing that will keep me there if it's good. And this did just that. I was always curious to see where the story was going to go. I think Clive is a really, really strong protagonist. I think the relationship that he has and you kind of learn that he has with his brother throughout the game is a very strong relationship. And it all kind of ties well into the overarching narrative as a whole. So I just want to shout out the narrative real quick. I think it was pretty good, definitely on the upper end of the Final Fantasies that I've played. But yeah, so those are kind of a lot of the positive things. Is there anything you wanted to add on a positive note that I may have missed, Nick? Or
no, I think you got it.
Cool. And then
no mention of Torgal though. Torgal's the best.
Oh, sure. I hope I don't have to remind our audiences that good boys always deserve pets. So if you guys play through this game, know that you can pet Torgal. You better pet that dog. Mm-hmm. All right. Yep. I think you get a trophy for it too. And lastly, sorry, one more positive, and I'll just mention it briefly. I really dug I think it was called the active time lore system, which just allowed you to, really kind of gave the agency and the player to digest the story at their own pace and get as much or as little out of it as you really kind of wanted to. Because as we're gonna see with my next comment here, the main narrative is really the only narrative you really kind of need to worry about. So, it just allows you to go in and learn a little bit more, which character is that, which faction is he tied to, blah, 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 blah. It's just a nice quality of life thing to have. Mm-hmm. But it's not a perfect game. No, very few games are. And I think the thing that sticks out the most is the lack of love that side quests were given in this game. It's interesting because this game is so strong in so many different areas that it almost makes the things that aren't as strong pop out even more. I think if the boss fights weren't so good, if everything else wasn't so good, the side quests wouldn't bug me so much. But because they are, it just really stands out that much more. And when you do fetch quest after fetch quest after fetch quest, and you start to realize that there's absolutely no world building going on, there's absolutely no intricacies to these stories. It's simply, and I know this because it got so bad that I started skipping all of the dialogue in the most of the side quests. Yeah. Same here. So where you really start to see this kind of, it kind of blew my mind how obvious of a pattern it was, where it was go to person, go investigate something in an area, come back to person, another character is going to run in and say, this area is getting attacked. And you go fight the people, come back and get a reward. Dude, I'm telling you, 60 to 75% of the missions were that exact thing. And it just felt weird because there's so much love and so much polish and so much attention to all these other areas of the game that they just missed the ball on that one. And to make it even more confusing, the side quests get really good at the last 5% of the game. The last 5% of the game, you eventually have a side quest that kind of deals with a side character you've been, hanging out with throughout the game, whether it's the shopkeep of the town Faerun or it's, the blacksmith. They all have these kind of more intensive, meaningful, emotional side quests that you would get to, and it's weird to me that they didn't think that was a point of the game that needed a little bit more love. So there's that, and then lastly here, I think the RPG mechanics could have been a little bit better. Now, I'm a little more understanding of this issue because, I've actually thought a lot about it, especially when I was playing it, because one of my favorite parts about RPGs and games like this in general is I am a stat guy. I like seeing numbers go up, but I like my abilities to change in at least a little bit of a way. And what I'm referring to is basically the weapon system and the armor system, and there's one other thing you could equip. I think it's like a wrist guard or something. You really only had 3 things you could equip. And every time you equip something, all it does was bring that number up a little bit. All the way through the final weapon of the game, where it doesn't really affect the way that your sword, anything more than the way it looks. And I understand that this was probably done because they decided to go super hard into the action-based combat Devil May Cry style thing. And if you start to incorporate too many variables, I can see that being a very hard system to balance, especially if they were going to design the combat the way they were going to design it. I think I could see it breaking systems or just, not working out very well. But it would have been nice to kind of go through the game, get to a shiny thing on the ground, it not just be a little bit more money, it not just be, the same 5 things that I've collected through the entire game, but to get different weapons, to get things that affect how, my combat encounters will be, more than just the moves that I'm choosing. So I kind of get it, but it's still, I think, maybe if they take this formula and bring it into 17, that they can refine a little bit, because I think they will stick with this style. But yeah, I mean, I was just spewing a bunch of words all at the same time, but I think that kind of encapsulates how I feel about the game pretty well. Without getting into spoilers and specifics, it's paced very well. Again, there's big special moments mixed in with smaller intimate moments. I think some of the side characters could have been better, but Joshua, Gav, there's some pretty good ones. Sid, of course, which leads me to the score I have to give it. And I'm just going to say it again, Nick. I feel like an 8 or like a 4 or 5 doesn't do it for me with this one. I don't think it's a 5, but I definitely don't think it's a 4. I got to petition once again, I think, to have a 10-point system, because this game to me is very much a 9 out of 10. It's very much a game that does so much right, but it doesn't do all of the things. Where an 8 just feels like I'm not giving it enough of a shine. That's just how I feel.
You're thinking too hard about this. 5 just means it's perfect. 4 means it's an excellent game, but there are things that could be better.
It just doesn't feel right, man. In a world of open critics, in a world of where we're digesting that stuff. We're in a fantasy league where we're looking at points and decimals and things. It doesn't feel right to me to give it an 8. I know it's an excellent game. It doesn't feel right. So I bow to your will. You are the shepherd of this podcast. However, this is getting a 4.5 out of me. Get fucked, Nick. All right.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah, you take it. You suck on
that. This podcast is over. I'm done.
We made it one topic into season 2. Sorry, folks. But yeah, dude, great game. I highly recommend it. I think if you're a Final Fantasy fan through and through, don't let the people say, well, it's not a Final Fantasy game, dissuade you. Go in with an open mind. There's a lot to love about it.
Yeah. again, I reviewed it, 4 out of 5. I agree. It's a near perfect game and a good track to put the Final Fantasy franchise on. It's been kind of shaky with the main numbered single player ones between 13 and 15 weren't as received as well. So.
Yeah, really since 12, which I think, what was that, like 2006 maybe? 2005, something like that. It's been a while, I feel like, since a super strong numbered entry that's not 14. So I asked you this off the air, so I'm going to ask you it on the air. This is a stacked year for video games. Do you think Final Fantasy XVI has a chance to stand out at all come December for the Game Awards? A question that I would not have even contemplated prior to the year. Well, I think it does. I think it does. This is... I don't think there's even a question of it anymore that this is turning into an all-time year alongside 2007 and a couple others. So when I think of Game of the Year, there's two that are absolute shoo-ins, and that's Zelda and Baldur's Gate. I think those two are guaranteed to be there. I would be shocked if Spider-Man 2 isn't there. But after that, I think that's where it starts to get a little weird, right? And so Keeley usually nominates, six games get it usually?
Yep, six games.
So we're kind of playing with 3 others, and I think the contenders, you probably got Resident Evil, Dead Space, you got Starfield, and Final Fantasy. Those would probably be maybe Sea of Stars. I don't know. We'll get there. But those would be the ones that I think would be vying for it, and I think based on some of the reception that we're hearing from Starfield, I haven't played that yet. I think it edges that out, and I think it would get some more votes and attention than Resident Evil 4 Remake would. Even if you like that game a little more, I think it's just going to have that, it's a remake of an old game about it, which will detract a little bit. So I think it will just sneak in there with a Game of the Year nomination towards the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see. Not all the games are reviewed yet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Alan Wake 2 could be a sleeper hit. I mean, if that thing comes out and it's awesome. I mean, I don't think Armored Core 6 gets that nod, but, who knows? There might be some From Software junkies out there that just, want to do it. So, I don't know. But I think it's good enough to make it for sure.
Okay. All right. And then, secondly, over the weekend, Final Fantasy XVI got an update. They gave you new skins for Clive, Jill, and Torgal, and the ability to use any weapon skin you want that you get in the game. But then they also announced that 2 paid DLCs are coming to Final Fantasy XVI 2. And it's coming to PC. I won't forget that.
Yeah, it's important.
But what's the chance you play these DLCs? I would assume one DLC at least will have a new icon.
Yeah, you gotta get Leviathan in there for sure.
Yeah.
I would say it's more likely than not, but definitely not a surefire thing. Is kind of what I'm thinking. I inherently do not like DLC. I like to put a game down when I'm done with it and move on to the next thing. But I mean, even if the DLC is just a new boss fight, I'm in, man. Like I said, the boss fights are that good. They're some of the most awesome anime type bullshit things you've ever seen. I'm a huge Attack on Titan fan, and it gave me those level of vibes. So if they can do that again, I'm in. But if they come out and they're like, oh, this DLC is a fishing mini game where you can I'm out with it with anything like that. It would have to be it would have to be probably revolving around an icon to get me in. So
right.
Hopefully they give us the details we need.
Yeah, they haven't announced price, date, or anything like that. So yeah, the scale of this is who knows. But yeah, that was interesting that came up over the weekend. I was like, oh shit.
I believe they even said, don't quote me on this. I thought they said that there were no plans for DLC back in the day, or something like that. I feel like it was right when the game came out, and you were way ahead of me, like you always are, and you're like, oh, well, I haven't gotten the 8th icon yet, and I'm like, I'm gonna spoil stuff for myself because I have no control. And I was like, oh, there isn't an 8th icon. Leviathan's not in it, so I'm like, but I swear right around that time they're like, nah, we don't have any plans for it. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. But money also is pretty powerful motivator.
And
it's a great game. So.
Assuming the Final Fantasy XVI remake DLC did well for them, if they're going to announce it for this game too. So,
you mean Intergrade Final Fantasy VII?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that was the last DLC I think for a Square game that I can remember.
Yeah.
So we'll see. There'll be more details on that, I'm sure. Maybe they will be at the Game Awards. I wouldn't be surprised if that game shows up, since it will at least be nominated for something, even if it doesn't get that Game of the Year nod.
I probably should have said this during my review too. I think it probably is currently my Game of the Year, if I were to say.
Okay.
So that we're talking that level. I think it's probably my Game of the Year. We'll see.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So we're moving on to the next thing. There is 6 things, folks, so don't worry about that. But I'm driving the ship here. We're still in the catch-up phase. So
he's power mad, people. He's hungry for power.
Yes, this is my show. We're not talking about a single Souls game at all. That's against the rules.
I'll get him. I'll fix him, Mark. Don't worry.
But we're going to kind of catch up with the other games we've been playing over the past month. And since we'll go one by one, but since John just had a big rant about Final Fantasy XVI, I'll start with one of the games that I played in our little month off here, and that was Sonic Mania. If you remember in episode 60, we went and played the original Sonic on Sega Genesis again, and I was, I got that itch, and I was like, oh, I never did beat Sonic Mania. So I did that, and all it did was remind me that Sonic is a bad franchise for video games. I'm sorry. It has great music, it has great art, but the game design of Sonic is inherently bad. The platforming feels bad, and at its best is you're going super fast through a level and not really doing anything. You're just watching things go by at a crazy speed. So I had that realization in our time off that Sonic is done for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting franchise, man. That it always feels like it's at odds with itself. And let me preface this with Sonic 2 is maybe the most nostalgic game for me. It's up there. Gunstar Heroes. There's some other games from that Genesis era. So I love Sonic 2, but yeah, as I play it as an older guy who just kind of understands what it makes things good and bad, it's constantly saying, well, go fast. Don't you want to go fast? But don't go too fast because this is all the fun stuff. Don't you want to get the power-ups and things like that and the secrets? And yeah, I do, but go fast. It's like, well, what do you want me to do, man?
And you can react to the environment or the enemies in time when you're going fast either. And usually they're pretty nasty too. They're not just like, if I'm spin dashing, they're dead. It's more like, they're gonna hurt me.
yeah. Or even you might even be spin dashing and that enemy has spikes covered on him, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's Sonic 1 really brought that to light when I was playing it. It's like it felt like this game is trying to hurt me. It feels like it's intentionally just putting enemies exactly where you're gonna have to land on a precise jump, and the precise jumping is not good anyway. So it's just like, it's not a very fun game to revisit, is it?
No, and I did mention this is a PlayStation Plus Essential game at one point, so I'm sure if you're subscribed, you have access to it if you want to go back to it. But I say no, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody out there listening that really loves Sonic and is willing to go to bat and defend Sonic, I would be, we'd be interested in hearing from you, just to see is there something we're missing? Is it really just you love these characters? Because Sonic is he's one of the more popular just characters out there too, which I've never quite understood why.
He was like the number one in that list of pornified franchises. He was number one.
Yeah, baby.
So that's what I was going to add that caveat. If you like Sonic because you're horny for him and the other characters, that's not valid. That doesn't apply to the game. So
right. Also seek help. That as well.
But yeah, I just even Sonic Generation or Sonic Superstars is coming up here in October, and this kind of just shut the lid on even that possibility. So
Yeah, I'm wondering if that one's gonna have a different vibe and feel. Like, is that gonna feel more like new Super Mario Brothers or like Rayman Legends and less speed oriented? But I'm sure there's gonna be some level of go fast, go fast, go fast. So. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, Nick. So although it's not your necessarily cup of tea, do you think Sonic Mania is the best that the franchise has ever been?
No. Well, no, because I'm with you. Sonic 2 because of nostalgia and the time I played it. And Sonic Mania is kind of like a twist. Like it remakes old levels, so the Chemical Plant Zone is in this, and it's almost 1-to-1. But then they kind of play through the normal level first, and then they do like a remix of Chemical Plant with new mechanics and whatnot. No, I don't think so. Okay. But I'm not going to be the don't ask me. I don't again I don't like the franchise and I thought this would be the game, right? Because it is like a kind of love letter to those Sonic of the Sega Genesis eras, but still no. So
it's nice knowing though that you play a game or even like you experience a movie or something and you're like, well, I know this is supposed to be the best, and I hate this one. All right, cool. I don't have to even worry about it anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes that is nice, but yeah. All right, well, cool. Hey, are we bouncing to me now, or are you gonna go? Okay,
you can go.
Cool. All right, so I got a couple weird ones. I didn't really play a lot of PlayStation during our time off. I think Final Fantasy XVI kind of, while I loved it, I was just ready to play something smaller, something a little...
You're an Xbox gamer. We established this last episode.
No, bro. I'm a PC gamer now.
Oh, my God.
I'm playing a PC game, Nick. Well, actually, I played a PC game.
Now you have no allegiances? You're just sleeping with everybody? The enemy, the neutral party...
I don't see color, Nick. All right? Everybody is on the same playing field for me. That's not true. PlayStation is still the best. However, my son, famous son of the show, Levi, 6.5-year-old boy, loves YouTube, all that great stuff that every kid does nowadays. He's been watching one of his favorite streamers play this little game called Only Up. And... for those who don't know that, I think most people are familiar with a game called Getting Over It, which is this little guy sitting in a bowl and he like uses a hammer to try and just keep climbing higher and higher, and there's annoying physics and things like that kind of mess with you. Well, I think this is kind of the evolution of that game. And so Only Up is exactly what it's called. You are literally just a guy that climbs a ridiculous tower, to just get to the top. And it's incredibly physics-based, and you're climbing not just a building, you're climbing think of a giant banana floating in space, and then you're climbing a giant whale floating above that, and then, all this other crazy things. But it's an interesting game. I don't think I can recommend it. I don't think I can not recommend it. I don't think I can really evaluate it on much more of a level than it was a fun way to spend 2 hours and kind of bond with my son a little bit, but I never want to play it again.
Sure.
It was genuinely fun to, as my son would say, Dad, you just beat your PB, which, personal best, right? It was always fun to get to that point of I've never been higher than this. I've never gotten past this. And then you do, and you're kind of in this uncharted territory where you don't know, what the jumps are, and you don't know what you need to do, because what you find is you do fall a lot, right? And so you're playing the beginning of this game a lot, which specifically one of the first areas is called Pipes. And, after playing Pipes 30 or 40 times, you're just give me past this fucking area. So, once you start to learn the jumps, it doesn't become very hard. All the controls is basically, A, W, S, and D. And, you use a mouse to kind of move the camera to be able to grab onto the surface you need to. But, enough perseverance, enough jumping and whatnot. I eventually made it to the top. It took about 2 hours. And I enjoyed my time with it. It was only $7.99, so low effort. I'm sure pretty much any PC can run this game. It doesn't look the greatest. The draw distances are shit, but, it does what it needs to do. And the last thing I'll say about it is, my God, have I never had a game give me vertigo the way that this one does. Like, I think any guy out there knows the feeling of standing on the ledge of something and looking down very far and you feel it in your balls. You know what I'm talking about, Nick, right? Yeah, you get that feeling in this game. It's wild. Like, every single time, like, I'm jumping and I'm like, I have to jump on this stop sign and it's tiny and I have to, hit the jump perfectly or I'm falling all the way down. It gives you a weird level of anxiety and relief, and then anxiety and relief, almost too much so where it's just like, oh my God, I need to take a break. But yeah, so Only Up was definitely one of the weirder game experiences I've had. It's very, very basic, but check it out if you're into masochism.
Okay.
It's great.
All right, and then I just have one more game here. It is Valkyria Chronicles 4. This is a Sega game that was released on the PlayStation 4. It is a turn-based strategy game, very anime-inspired, very Fire Emblem-inspired. But instead of on a tactical grid, when you pick to control a character, you actually control them in third person, whether it be mortar, a sniper, a tank, APC, whatever that is. You control it on a field, and you have X amount of action points, and that's how far you can move on the field. And then you can take an action, whether it be shoot, throw grenade, various other items. This is the fourth game in the franchise. It's kind of jumped everywhere. It was originally for PlayStation 3, and then the second and third ones were on the PSP, and then it finally came back to PlayStation 4. It's okay. It's nothing special. It has one of the most frustrating menus that I've ever experienced. The game is told from the perspective of this guy's diary, and everything from encounters to cutscenes are little images in this book. And then as you complete a chapter, the page turns and so on. They divide the cutscenes up so fine-tunedly. Is you watch a cutscene, back to the book. It says you've unlocked another cutscene. Click that cutscene. That cutscene plays out. Come back to the menu. You've unlocked another cutscene.
Oh, God.
And it can do this for like 7 cutscenes in a row.
Just give me the things.
Yeah, just play it all out. And all one giant push. Just play it all out. I don't want to do it. But aside from that, yeah, the voice acting's good. The music's good. The art style's good. Again, this is a very busy fall. I don't know if I'll ever come back to this game. But it did hold me over during this kind of the calm before the storm as we're about to get into. But
okay,
yeah. Look it up.
84, not bad. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's always on sale. You can get like the whole game and all the DLC for like $9. Every other sale it shows up. So.
Well, let me ask you this, Nick. Now, I know from knowing you on a personal level that you are a big fan of the first one of these. Would you recommend somebody new to the series just go play Valkyria Chronicles 1 or jump to this one?
Oh, you can just jump to this one.
Jump right. You think jump right to this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's good.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this game has all the Fire Emblem things, too, of like permadeath. Like characters die and then they don't come back unless you want to, reload your save or whatever. So you get like 100 different soldiers in this game. Every time you complete a mission, it's like, here are the new recruits, and they have relationships with other characters. So it's got all of kind of that meta that you find in Fire Emblem with relationships and a varied cast of characters.
So every time do you get a new soldier, do you go, ooh, you're going to be a good little soldier? Yeah.
That thought does cross my mind, yeah.
Okay, good. Good. All right, well, I'll jump through because I always have more in lists than Nick does, but I don't have a lot to say about any of these. I'm still plucking away at Tears of the Kingdom. I got to admit, though, Nick, I'm really just not feeling it lately. Like, every time I load into it, I kind of find myself just not in the mood to build things with my weird building mechanics, and the systems are all incredible and all that good stuff. It's just, it's also just so open-ended that I find myself getting almost too lost, where I want to make progress and I want to keep going, but I just keep having this like overwhelming fear of, oh my God, I'm still just in Hyrule and I haven't even explored underground yet. I haven't even gone into the sky. I have all these other things to play. So I think I'm just putting that one down until. Did
you hear the Switch rumors that came out today? The Switch 2 rumors?
I did not know.
Apparently, the rumor is it was showed behind closed doors at Gamescom with Tears of the Kingdom and it running immaculately, 60 frames per second and all that. So,
well, every game is going to be better than it was when it was released. That's every game forward now. So, I mean, that's just more. Yeah, that's good to know. Honestly, that's more of a reason for me to feel good about maybe putting it down for a bit because I wanna give that time or that game, the respect and shine it deserves. So maybe it might be like a good December game. We'll see. After I get through Spider-Man 2 and I'm looking to pick apart something meaty, but. 3 other games really quick here. I put down Signalis. I do recommend it. I think it was really good. And I believe I talked about it a little bit on the show here where it's the, Resident Evil 1 PS1 retro aesthetic style survival horror game that has a lot of cool things going for it. But I could kind of, after about 5 hours into it, I started to feel like, okay, I see everything this game does. I like it, but I'm not really willing to put in the effort to keep going and continuing in it. At least if I had to keep subscribing to Game Pass. If I owned it a la carte, I'd probably keep going with it, but it was just, too much other stuff to get through. And then I did check out a little bit more Pentiment, and, I don't know if I have very fleshed out thoughts on it, but I do think it's very charming. I think there's a level of humor that kind of permeates every still frame of that game that if you're looking for it, you're going to find. Gorgeous art, really unique art style. Similarly to Valkyria Chronicles 4, though, really infuriating menu system. I just, again, it's kind of this like notebook that he carries around, but being that it takes place in the 1500s, all the writing is, curvy and weird, and you kind of have to spend an extra second even seeing what it says, and it's kind of formatted in this journal thing, and it's just, I don't know, not very intuitive, but that might be just me not being very, far into the game. But last thing I want to bring up that I've been playing, and it's really been unfortunately taking up a lot of my it's perfect, the perfect poop game. I've talked about it before, but it came out on Switch for $4 and it's got me hooked again. And Vampire Survivors is just crack in video game form. So just been sinking more like aimless time into it here and there. It's perfect when my girls are, kind of drinking their bottles and I got 10 minutes here or there, do a little bit of a run. That game is great, dude. Like if I don't know if you've really ever given it some time, Nick, and it is the most mindless game I've ever played, but it is it's more deep than you'd think in terms of just unlocks and synergies with the weapons you pick up and the amount of characters that you can get. And there's, if you're into unlocking and just keep that dopamine rush going, there really isn't anything like it. Okay. Shout out to Vampire Survivors for $4. I feel like that's the kind of game that, as long as there's a handheld system out there, if they put that game on it, I'm just going to buy it for that handheld system whenever that is, because it's always going to be cheap, it's easy, and, keeps me entertained. So that's what I've been playing, except for something we're, I think, about to talk about here in a second.
That is correct. So we're caught up. Now we're moving to current times, current games. Again, we're kind of in the midst of 4 big releases. We've played 2 of them. And the first one we're going to talk about is Sea of Stars. Now, if you subscribe to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus Extra, this game was free to you on August 29th. This comes from Sabotage Studio. If any other platform, you got to pay $35 for it. And it is currently sitting at an 89, so reviewing very well right now. It is it's recreating nostalgia, that term that I like to use. But recreating Super Nintendo JRPGs. So think Chrono Trigger's the big one, but like Illusion of Gaia, Final Fantasy VI, kind of like those type of games.
I've heard Golden Sun is another big one.
Yep, Golden Sun's a good one. That was a Nintendo, the first handheld, Game Boy Advance game. Yeah, very similar. It has that Super Nintendo 16-bit era sprites. You play from an isometric view, and then when you get into battles, it's turn-based, old school turn-based. So every character just kind of takes their shot when they're available. I'm going to let you take the lead here on this one, and then I'll give my thoughts. But just kind of let us know how far you are, how long you've been playing, and then your current impressions of it.
Yeah, so I've probably got about 6 to 7 hours in. I really probably should have checked my game clock last night, but...
What island are you on?
I just got to Wraith Island, so
Okay.
I'm still early. So I'm a level 6, which for JRPG fans and RPG fans in general, it's a meatier level 6 than I think you're used to. It actually takes a pretty decent amount of time to level up your character. So level 6 is not just like, you know, the intro area still. Like I feel like I'm a decent way into it, but you know, there's one word that I think kind of pops into my brain when I think of this game, Nick, and that's delightful. This game is delightful in every sense of the word. It is gorgeous to look at. Anybody who's been following the development cycle of this game, I think, would agree with that. One of the best looking pixel art games I've literally ever seen, with some of, the most charming music to go alongside it. The gentleman who did the music for Chrono Trigger, which is regarded as one of the greatest soundtracks in video game history.
Yasunori Mitsuda.
Yep, he came out of retirement or whatever you do in Japan to come help out with this game, and it just feels, I'm so pleased when I'm just exploring around these islands and the bright colors that are popping and the cheery music and the characters are so. And I'm not a positive guy, Nick. I live my world in pessimism, but like Garl, one of your companions is just so uplifting and positive, and you just can't help but just kind of go through this game and just really want to experience everything it has for you. And
can you briefly touch on what the story is, at least from the outset?
Yeah, so you play as 2 characters, or you have your choice between one of them. One kind of uses the sun as his guiding magic principle. The other is the moon, and you play as they're called solstice warriors. And so they've kind of are these chosen type of people from birth, I think, that kind of get selected, and they have to train for years and years and years to take down these enemies called dwellers, which I believe I haven't gotten to this part of the game yet, but they're like these big world-eating type of enemies, and it's our job as Solstice Warriors to take them down, right?
Yeah. So they're evil entities, and if they're left unchecked, they will grow big enough to consume the world. They become world eaters.
Yep. Yeah. So it's got a strong narrative that I am very much interested in. The other game that Sabotage Studios did was The Messenger, and for anybody who played The Messenger, one of the things that really shined about that game that I wasn't expecting was the level of writing and humor and things. And this game shows that as well. I am genuinely, I think there's a lot of times I go through a game that doesn't have voice acting where it's all text bubbles, and my eyes just eventually glance over and gloss over, and I don't really care, and I end up losing narrative, and I end up losing a little bit of some of the nuances I think that the developers want me to go. Every text bubble, I am taking my time, making sure that I'm getting all the jokes, making sure that I'm really kind of. Would
it shock you to know that the guy who wrote this, English isn't his first language?
Yes, it would. They're French, right?
I believe so. Let me.
Well, they have a really good translation team then, or somebody.
No, he's doing it, but it's not his first language. I think if you're a snob, I think of the English language, you'll notice a lot of like commas probably being a little used too much in this when they're talking in this. But yeah, no, I agree with you. The writing in this is funny and silly. There's some great. Fourth wall breaking as opposed to Yolande. She's part of this pirate crew, and she kind of makes fun of these type of games and random encounters and stuff like that. I was laughing out loud at some of the things she was saying. So, but sorry to interject. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, it's so delightful in those ways. But it's not just. The aesthetics and things that I think really make this game shine. It's you can really feel the creativeness and the willingness of this team to try and innovate on already existing formulas and genres. And what I mean by that is, again, taking a game like The Messenger, which is very much Ninja Gaiden, right? It's 8-bit side-scrolling platforming game with some hard combat. But they thought about it, and I think they decided that, well, what if there was a mechanic that allowed our character to jump after he's hit something with his sword? And what that did is it allowed them to build levels in ways that you really couldn't back in the day. And I think similarly with this, where it's wearing its inspirations on its sleeve, but it's innovating in thoughtful ways to make it very engaging for people who are familiar with those kind of games but are looking for a little bit more. Specifically in the combat with this game, there's something, they call it the lock system, right? Is that what it's actually called? I think it is.
Yes. Yep.
Where when you go into a battle, right, you have your turn-based, there's going to be a little timer next to the enemies that say, hey, their turn is going to act in 2 turns or 1 turn or sometimes 3. But also next to that, every once in a while, they'll have these little squares, and inside those squares, there could be, I think, 2, 3, or 4. I think there can be more than that, too. Again, I'm not as far as you are, Nick, so you can maybe correct me on that. But inside each of those squares is an icon, and that icon relates to either like a specific type of attack, whether it's a fire-based attack that your sun guy can do, a moon-based attack that your girl can do, or your standard blunt force or slashing type damage. And as you attack these enemies with that corresponding type of damage, it's going to start chipping away and negating those. And if you can get all of those away, it's basically going to skip that enemy's turn. And usually with the locks, it means it's going to be like their super move or their powerful move, right? And so you want to, hey, I want to get rid of this. Like specifically, there's an enemy early in the game where if they get their lock move pulled off, they summon more enemies. And I don't know about you, Nick. I don't want enemies coming if I'm getting towards the end of a fight.
Is it that underground worm?
Yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah. So I see his locks. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to kind of ignore everything because I want you gone here so I don't have to just keep adding things. But it's just these little ways to keep the player engaged that I really, really appreciate. And I haven't even talked about the timing system that's incorporated into the combat as well, which allows you to, like, if you can hit X at a specific time, whether it's an attack, whether you're getting hit, anything like that, it's going to give you a little bit of a boost or maybe a little bit of damage negation. And again, it doesn't really affect the game in major ways, but it keeps me engaged and it keeps me from having to just like when I tried to get through Final Fantasy VII, the OG one, granted as an adult, I just found myself getting bored eventually with like, oh my god, okay, X X X X X X X X X X X X X. Like you just want to get through a fight. And in these ones, like whether it's because the combat feels good and thoughtful, or I know I'm going to get a decent amount of experience points from this and I want to level up, to maybe I'm going to get a type of reward. The game just feels very balanced and very thought out. When I come across a chest, it's usually appropriately hidden, not in a crazy way where I'm going to miss it, but like, oh, there's a little path over there that I didn't see. Or, oh, there's actually something in this chest that I can use, as opposed to a game like Final Fantasy XVI, which is like, okay, it's more money. It's like, oh, I got a fucking new piece of armor. Sweet. And like, I just really appreciate those things. And I really couldn't be happier for this team. I think Sabotage, with this release, has cemented themselves alongside Supergiant as some of the best indie developers in the business. And I am there, I think, day one for Sabotage's next games, and I'm wanting to end this podcast right now so I can go home and play Sea of Stars, which is a feeling that I've been trying to chase my entire adult life. I think back to being a kid bagging groceries at Kroger and be like, I just want my shift to end so I can go play Final Fantasy. It's like I feel like that right now, and that's great. And I can't wait to see more, because I know there's also going to be a lot more awesome things to come.
Yes. I don't know if I'll give my impressions in just a sec, but I don't know if you heard they are doing DLC for this game.
I did. Yes, I did.
Yes,
I did. That'll be DLC that I definitely will check out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I have had the last week off, and just as John mentioned, I have been obsessed with this game even more than the next game we're going to talk, which is, Baldur's Gate 3.
Nice.
I have put in 31 hours into the game and have completed it, and this is my game of the year so far.
Hell yeah.
It is something really, really, really special. John kind of touched on a lot of it, and that's kind of like, it's trying to be like these older games, but the story and the heart that is put into this and the character designs it's just very whimsical, the whole experience. And You know, wait till John, you get to the crazy summons of the game. You know, the ultimate moves and the crazy and the lock system itself too is huge. The lock system is the biggest part of the game, and it makes things a puzzle because they're going to introduce more mechanics to it, and some things attacks like if you don't manage this thing, things will escalate quickly for you.
They hit hard, man. They hit hard.
And there's so many good story. We might have to do a spoiler cast on this because there's so many good story moments, John. I can't wait till you get there.
I mean, I think if we're both passionate enough, which it sounds like you are 100%, I'm on the trajectory to be. Like, yeah, we can definitely do that.
It's just great. I just couldn't stop playing it all the way till the very, very end here. Your moves don't expand very much. I think all the moves you have now, I think you get one more for each character, and that's it for the rest of the game.
Okay,
that's kind of a negative thing, but you do get more characters. You know, so there's definitely, and you haven't gotten a fourth character yet, have you?
No, the ninja. No, I haven't yet.
Okay, so in this game, which is just really convenient, is you can just swap to a character at any time. So if it's Valyr's turn.
Final Fantasy X, baby. That's what that does.
And it doesn't cost you anything. You can just be like, okay, the lock says poison damage. Okay, I'll swap to the ninja character and take care of that. And it doesn't cost you anything other than the character's turn, and then the character that you previously won is not on the field anymore. So if you did some kind of buff to them or any kind, it doesn't stick with it sticks with them. So Valyr has this like bubble shield. Like that bubble shield will go with Valyr if you swap her out for the ninja lady. And I think that's just, again, it's really smart and it makes the combat more interesting because it's always just a puzzle. You know, like what's the most efficient way to get the locks down and manage the other enemies if they're not doing locks. Maybe I want to kill this guy because his health is low enough. So yeah, the combat continues to be interesting. And
well, let me pause you right here because I do have a question about the lock system. So I've noticed early on, it seems like there's some enemies that I do not have the necessary moves to get their lock off. Is that me just not thinking it through properly, or is that me?
Do you have an example?
Yes. So with it doesn't matter what the enemy is, but there'll be like sword, sun, and that's it. And he's gonna do his move in 2 moves. I only have my guy with the sword and the sun. Like so. Are you always able to time it so that I can get 2 sword hits in if I time it absolutely correctly, or is that still?
So if you active time hit it correctly, it's 2 sword hits. It counts as 2
every time.
Yeah, unless you miss that timing, then it's 1.
Okay. Then I'm just it's a skill issue. So that's okay. That's good.
So yeah, so again, like I was kind of teasing when I was talking about Final Fantasy 16 is like, when do you use? We didn't talk about the mechanic where when you hit an enemy with a normal attack, they kind of spill magic onto the field that you can absorb into your attack. So it makes your attack stronger, and then it also inflicts the sun, the poison, depending on the character's damage in addition. So you gotta actually kind of, you could use it for extra attack, or you might get screwed because the next lock will have that fireball on it with the swords, and you're gonna be like, oh no, I need that to unlock this. I needed that loose magic to absorb to get into that attack, and and that's a lot of things. That's a lot of special moves. That's a lot of the order in which you play a character's attack might matter, because there's a character that can delay those locks. Like delay the turn if it's coming down. They can be like, if it's down to 1, she has a special move that will delay it and push it back up to a 3, and that's probably one of the most clutch moves in the game.
Sounds like it.
But if she attacks early and they go to attack and then they come out of their attack into that lock, it might be at 1 right away, and you're like, I'm screwed. Like I can't. There's like 8 different locks I got to undo. Without her, this is going to go off, and I just have to, brace for impact, basically, whatever it's going to do. So, so it's just so good. Like I said, the movesets are very simple, but every combat encounter is not. It's always, you have to be thinking, you can't just be hitting X, 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 attack. Because even simple enemy encounters, if you're not challenging those locks, they'll spiral out of control. And I think most of my deaths in this game were to fodder enemies who just outnumbered me either from the beginning, or I wasn't controlling the locks and they were doing more damage that I could recover from, and it just happens.
Yeah, no, they hit hard, like I said, man. The only time I've died so far was when one of those little wormy dudes just summoned way too many people, because I didn't put two and two together that was his like lock move. I'm like, because then then his summons started summoning, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm fucked immediately. But it's just very thoughtful. Like, it's just so creative, like you've been saying. I like the cooking system with Garl, like. How it's restrictive in the sense that like you can only have 10 different recipes at a given time, but like it allows you to just kind of play around with the different things that you have at your disposal whenever you need them. Like it's
the item system basically. You don't really buy items, you just make food, and then that food has different properties, but they're pretty standard RPG fare. Recover MP, heal your whole party, heal one person, revive people. Stuff like that. So that it's very adorable, and I wonder why they went with the hard limit, but maybe it's just the kind of put a little bit of difficulty in the game between campfires. There
was one fight where I exhausted all of my food items, and I got through it, but I was like, well, if he hits me 2 more times, I'm fucked, and it worked out well. But Nick, how's the trophy hunting in this game? I haven't seen a lot about it.
Okay, so we didn't talk about relics. Have you looked into relics?
I know you have to get them all.
No, you do not. Not relics.
Oh, you don't?
You do have to, all the treasures, all of the conches you do have to get. But the game makes those things easy. I won't spoil what happens, but don't worry about going back.
Okay, I know there's some relics that say like, hey, there's this many items in this area that you haven't gotten, and there's some relics that say like, you have the chests over here.
Yeah, tracking the items is fairly easy, so don't even worry about it. You can't even do it, until you have all the later game abilities anyway. So, but anyway, so relics can affect like the difficulty. You can either make the game easier. I know there's one that will send up a flare every time you do correct timing on something, so that you're doing it.
I got that one.
But there's this one that you get later in the game that's called Artful Gambit.
Oh, you have to kill like 10 enemies with that on, right?
Correct. And what that thing does is put your health all at 1, and you have to if you don't actively time every attack, you'll die.
Ew.
So,
all right.
And you have to beat 10 bosses with it. So this game does have New Game Plus, but the New Game Plus 10 bosses I don't even think, have you played 10 bosses where you're at?
No, I feel like I've played like half a boss.
Yeah, so you would have to...
I played two bosses.
Yeah, so you'd have to go through, and I think you've played more. You've definitely played more than that. But you have to go and do that, and as of right now, I just don't want to do that. Yeah. I don't want to start the game over in New Game Plus and then get to all these bosses and have to do that.
And then start hating the game. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Other than that, all the other trophies are manageable. That's the only one that you can't get, or I don't want to spend the time, and I have a feeling that this game might have like a boss rush mode or something later, and it might make that trophy easier. I'm putting the game down for that, but everything else, all the rest of the trophies are very manageable.
Okay, that's good. 'Cause I read an interview that said the director doesn't give a shit about trophies, but he knew that people did, so they were very kind of thoughtful to make trying their best to make a thoughtful and well put together trophy list. So
yeah, there's no missable trophies.
Cool.
So and the only other thing is, again, this is a long game. You probably will think you're getting to the end and you're nowhere close. I'll be honest.
Nick was explaining that today. He's like, dude, I thought I was at the end like 10 times. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to say because I'm at hour 6, but
the
was
story's
pumped
going to
about it.
build up in a way where you think you're going to hit the end and you're not even, don't even close. Just every time you
Yeah.
save, it kind of gives your hour mark. Yeah,
Yeah.
just buckle in. It's about, it's over 30 hours.
Yeah, the How Long to Beat has it at 26 for just the main story, so that tracks. And I think some, like, looking through the trophy list, it's not really a spoiler. Some people might say it, but let's just say I'm supposed to be going to fight the final dweller right now. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see where that goes. But
Yeah. Yep.
no, man, it's super happy for the team. They keep making posts about how many copies they've sold. So not only did they get the bag from Sony, from Microsoft, but they're getting copies left and right on Switch probably. And it's it'll be interesting. This could lay a wrinkle into your earlier question of, does Final Fantasy get a Game of the Year nod? Because it's just going to depend. I could see people easily saying this is better than Final Fantasy. I could see people easily saying Final Fantasy is better than this. It just depends on the type of game you like to have. But I don't think there's any denying the level of quality that Sea of Stars truly is, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see, man. I kind of want to go back and play The Messenger after this. I don't know.
Well, get through this game first. I think you should divert all attention to this.
I will.
And it's a 5. It's a 5 out of 5. That's how I feel about
Nice.
it. You don't.
Beautiful.
This game just comes out of nowhere and consumes my whole life.
Yep.
That's.
That makes me happy, man. I know you typically like the big budget, and AAA things, and I'm happy to see that one of these took to you in such a way, and hopefully Sabotage is here for a long, long, long time.
And the I don't want to get too far ahead, but the end game stuff is awesome too.
Really?
Kind of
That's
when, because this isn't a lot of JRPGs like this. They kind of, the end game is kind of like the world is fully open to you, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's just like there's just so much good stuff in there.
Okay.
So yeah, that's Sea of
that's
Stars.
That's 2 strong recommendations right there. Go play it, people. You really, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you have access to it. Go play it.
Yeah, exactly. At least give it a shot. It's again, I think it has a slow start, but it gets going. Just
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm right about I'm right about the point where I'm like, I want to play the next day. Like, I got to Wraith Island and then I had to shut it down last night because it was like 12:30. I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
But
all right, let's move on. The next topic won't be too long because it's the talk of the internet. I have started playing Baldur's Gate 3. Firstly, I can talk about how it plays on PlayStation. I'm sure our listeners are curious about that. It plays very well. The load times are a bit much. I will say that.
Really?
They're about
interesting.
Well, given the game's mechanics, which we'll get into, you save scum a lot in this, and the loads are around. I don't want to say they're like 20 seconds because it feels like 20 seconds, but maybe it is 20 seconds. They're long enough to where I look away to my phone.
PS4 days.
Yeah,
The PS4 load
and we're a
times.
little spoiled now, so like that is a thing. And I know this game, as I'll get into, is doing a lot, so there's a reason for that. But yeah, the load times get to me. But the controller controls are very good. It relies a lot on wheels. So when you're in combat or just in the world, you hit R1 or L1, it pulls up a bunch your main wheel, and then you have a bunch of side wheels. So as you gain spells, as you gain, things that your character can do, it just keeps expanding. So I have 4 wheels right now for any character I pull up. Yeah, and that is, we'll get into that too. It is a lot. I agree with you, but playing the game it runs well. It looks very good. If this game is also crashing my PlayStation, which is just great.
Come on, Nick. treat your girl better.
I guess I'm doing something wrong, but at least over the last day or two, it has not crashed at all. So I don't know if something's changed or I'm out of whatever intense part of the game it is, but it has been crashing my PlayStation.
Okay.
But Yeah, Baldur's Gate, again, we've talked about it multiple times on this show. Big sequel to Baldur's Gate 2. Comes from story developer Larian. It is currently tied for the best review game of the year, with Tears of the Kingdom. It's sitting at a 96. It was at a 97 for briefly on OpenCritic. It had that top spot. But, so all of the accolades are there, and it's pretty much a turn-based Western RPG set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe where every option you can think of is probably viable. If you want to shove enemies down a cliff, if you can pass the roll, you'll shove them down a cliff and they're gone. If alcohol's spilled on the floor, you can light it on fire. If an enemy shoots acid at you and the acid's on the ground, you can dip your weapon into it and now you have acid.
That's cool.
Like the possibilities are really endless as far as what you can do. And just wandering the world. Like, imagine if you were walking through San Andreas in Grand Theft Auto 5 and you could have a conversation with every character that you passed. This game is doing that. I'm just like, I'll hit X on this random conversation, and they're like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, and then I have 5 dialogue options, and I go, who the fuck is this character? Like, I'm doing good. How are you? Oh, these goblins.
Do you exist?
Yeah, these goblins are here, and it's like, oh, okay, geez, and that is like, and it kind of just dumps you in the world like that, and I kind of think that's kind of a negative to the game, is it just kind of dumps you in. You're instantly, I have 5 other companions already within the first hour and a half. And then you go into these towns where like I say, anything is possible, and they're just spitting stuff at you all over the place. And you can do whatever you want. Like, if you don't like this person, you can just kill them. And the game continues on. You you can't complete the quest if they're part of it, but the game just will continue on.
Yeah.
And you're rolling for everything. So the big thing in D&D is, the D20 dice. You're rolling, 1 through 20. It's like every conversation, every interaction you have, you're rolling this dice. And that of itself is very, I don't know. It makes me, I don't know. I like opportunity lost, right? Like when you're playing like a Fallout game or XCOM where it's like you have a percentage chance to do this, like pass the persuasion check, if you're in Fallout or Starfield or whatever, you don't actually see that number that you roll to lose it. And that's kind of in your brain, like, okay, whatever, who knows. But if you were in Fallout and it's like 80% chance that you're going to pass this, and it was like, well, sorry, you rolled
15 and you need a 16.
Yeah. You rolled a 15 and you got a 16. You're like, I got to go back, reload my save, wait the 20, 30 seconds. Here we go again. And that is for every encounter in the game, for pretty much is this system. Every dialogue, every combat encounter, they can be handled a different way. Like I ran into 3 trolls, like 3 giant guys. And if I didn't pass this test, they were going to fight me, and it was going to be this big encounter. But I just kept reloading until I got the correct roll, and now I have a horn that summons them. So it's like, we cut a deal. I persuaded them to work for me now. And so now I have this horn that actually just got me out of a big boss encounter early in the game. I was able to summon these trolls to like come through and just demolish everything. And so some people might hear that and they're like, awesome, that's awesome. A game with infinite possibilities. But for me, there's just such a sense of FOMO and anxiousness that these opening hours in the game where you're not very strong either have been very frustrating. So that explains kind of why I leaned heavy into Sea of Stars, is because, it was not stressful. It was straightforward, I just had to figure out these combat encounters. But in this game, it's just like I can go anywhere and I can do whatever I want. And I have 5 party members who all have side quests, are all telling me what to do. I have all the normal side quests of this one village I ran into, which has like 3 different factions all wanting this or that. And now I'm in the world, and I'm not sure if it's kind of like a Souls experience where, like, if I see something hard, I should just run away. But right now, I've
Right.
been kind of like forcing myself through the encounters. And when you're running into enemies that in one hit do a third of your health, it's been a little frustrating. So I'm gonna stick with it because I've heard that this was what happens, and you're just not powerful enough, and the range of spells you can use just aren't good enough to get you through it like easily. But I mean, if worse comes to worse, I'll just lower the difficulty. It has kind of 3 difficulties, and I'm on normal. I have no problem going to story difficulty because the world is interesting, and the story so far and the characters are interesting. It's just a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, it does sound very similar to our experience with Divinity: Original Sin, where you can see all the awesomeness here, but it's just I feel like I am not playing the game by the rules you want me to, and you're gonna have a bad time if you do that. And it also sounds like this is definitely one of the skills you need to acquire is the ability for you to turn your brain off with some of the things you were talking about, right?
Yes,
like
just letting you go.
You almost can't play the game. You have to live the game. You have to, be comfortable with anything that happens because that's what your experience is. Nick Ben, I almost said, that's your experience. So you need to do that as much as you can. And I worry about that too for me. Like I don't know if I can do it, but goddamn do I want to. It's like the same I'm feeling the same thing with Starfield right now where it's like there's a possibility that if I give this the attention and effort it deserves and needs, it could become one of my favorite experiences of all time. But is that even worth it right now? I'm having a tough time getting through Tears of the Kingdom. Can I really spend the time to do Baldur's Gate?
It's a 130-hour RPG. It's just been said. Like the first, it's 3 acts, and the first act is like 50 hours. So that's also another reason not to stress over every individual encounter is because the game is going to be so much more of that. But
exactly. But we've been trained for 30 years to okay, I lost this, therefore I didn't get what I needed to be powerful, which I don't think that's a rule in this world. I think that's the rule in this world is like just keep going. Just keep going.
Nothing will ever make or break the game for you. Even if I didn't get that horn that summoned the 3 like troll guys, like I don't think like it wouldn't lessen my experience. I just gotta kind of
there's probably 20 things you missed that you didn't even know you missed that could have affected that fight in a different way too. It's just you really gotta work with your brain, get your brain to think the right way. But all right. Yeah. So you said you're putting it down for now, or like,
no. I put it down. So here's what happened. I also get character creator paralysis, especially in games like this, Dragon Age Inquisition. I got it day 1, and it took me days to finally get a character that I was like, okay, the story's going. I'm here. Same here. I created a character about 3 hours into the game. I was just like, I can't stand my character. Every cutscene, I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to do this. I know and while this game lets you respec your character, currently there's no way to change your appearance. So you're just kind of, again, 100-hour RPG, stuck with the character you don't like looking at. Like, I'm not going to do that. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll change my class up. Maybe I'll start as a new class this time too. And it was probably over the next few days, just me sitting in a character creator. Just I don't know what am I supposed to do? I don't know. I'm playing Sea of Stars, So
what did you go with then? What are you?
I am a bard.
Okay, you little singing bitch.
Yeah. So they have the high charisma. They have the best chance of persuasion or deception. So that's how I was able to get those trolls, is deceive them into thinking I was somebody I'm not. And so that's kind of, but they're not as strong as other classes would be in combat, at least right now.
Right.
But it's been fun. Again, it's just the game is very overwhelming. But now that I have Sea of Stars behind me, and nothing until the end of this month,
October 20th. Oh yeah, you got 19 days, right.
Yeah, the 26th, when Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty comes out. Because I'm very convinced that even at the way that I consume games, I'll be working. I'll probably finish this game by the end of the year. It's just, it's just that big of a game.
That's what I was going to ask next is, do you feel like the systems in this game are intuitive enough that you can set it down for a while, pick it back up, no problem? Or is it going to be an issue?
I mean, it is turn-based, so it's not like you're losing a lot. Like when I picked up like Burning Shores again, and I'm just like, I'm stuck in this combat encounter, and I don't remember any of my weapons or how to use them. So I think that will help. Like, it'll be pretty straightforward to get back into it. But
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, treat it like a D&D campaign where you pop in once, you pop in every couple days, you do a mission, and I don't know.
Yeah, it is my focus now. So I plan to make some serious progress over the next few weeks. So I am not touching Armored Core. So
no.
Yeah.
You should jump, try and party up with some people, for thoughts on that next week or next time we podcast. No,
well, right, are you gonna get it?
Eventually. I don't know if I can get it right now. I don't know, man.
Well, even just think about that, like a multiplayer campaign in a game that's over 100 hours. I don't know how if you're not a professional streamer. Yeah, if you're not a professional streamer, I don't know how you pull it off. So no, this will be a solo
what it was
experience
like
for me.
to be 16, Nick. Forget what it was like to have no responsibilities.
Yeah.
No, I will eventually. There's a couple games that I think are very much in that Black Friday space. The two big ones being that one and Armored Core. So probably be something somewhere around there, because I want to play Starfield as well, but I think I might end up just buying that game eventually whenever it drops a little bit in price. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Wow. You can tell we haven't podcasted in a while. We're good. We're going.
Well, yeah, and it helps when you can take all the best topics and things over the past 4 weeks as opposed to one.
Yeah. All right, so we got to hammer out some news items. So one being pretty big. We're gonna lead with that news item here, and that is PlayStation Plus. All the subscription tiers are going up in price.
What?
So it's alive now as you're listening to this, but this was sneakily added to the PlayStation Plus Essential Games list for September. We won't talk about those games because they are not good. But at the very bottom, it said, hey, on September 6th, these price changes are going in effect. So I'm going to use the U.S. prices. If you're in another country, if you're like Jesse, fan of the show in New Zealand, obviously look up for your price. But as of now,
what do you guys use? Dollary dues? What do you guys use down there? Sorry, I've been watching too much Bluey. Okay, Bluey's great. I love you guys. Anyway, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
So PlayStation Plus Essential, that base tier is going up from $59.99 to $79.99.
Ooh.
The PlayStation Plus Extra tier is going up from that $99.99 to $134.99. And the PlayStation Plus Premium subscription, was it $120 initially?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I don't remember that. I haven't paid for it before, so yeah, I think it was $120. That is be going up to $160.
Yeah.
When I showed John this, I think he encapsulated it perfectly. He said, "I'm surprised Sony is doing this first," and I think that sums this up perfectly. But John, give me your thoughts if you want to expand on that.
Sure. So, being that I've been able to sit with this for a little bit longer, I think, Nick, you can probably, know how I feel about this based on my takes on all of this kind of stuff. And, does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. Is it a big increase? Yeah, it kind of is. It's probably a little bit more than 99% of people are, able to just stomach and swallow without worrying about it. Things are expensive, right? Our dollars aren't going as far as they used to. There's a global economy kind of recession happening. Everything's increasing in price, so it makes sense that this stuff would as well. But that kind of is my takeaway is that I'm surprised Sony is the one who decided to do this first, because, you know, Microsoft has been the progenitors of the streaming model, right, with Game Pass. But I think it does kind of put into perspective just the advantage that Microsoft does have in this type of ecosystem, which is the ability to just absorb cost and absorb losses at a much, much higher degree than even a mega company like Sony can. So,
and
you know,
also to add on to that, when your library isn't as strong, because this is coming to Game Pass too, like no doubt,
1,000%.
But their library isn't strong, and eagle-eyed people saw that they removed can't talk the $1 1-month trial right before Starfield launched. So it's coming. It's going to come for Game Pass too. But I think to your point, they have their Windows and Office 365 sales to kind of eat the cost of paying for a game like Starfield and relying just on subscriptions, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw Microsoft gets 10% of their revenue from their gaming division, and I believe Sony is more in the 30 to 40%. So it's, you know, it is a bigger piece of the pie for Sony just in terms of the money that they bring in. But yeah, it shows that Microsoft can just, you know, keep basically operating at a loss so that they can outprice everybody. And I'm not saying that is what is intentionally happening or anything like that. It could just be that Sony's like, look, we're going to get ahead of this. We know people are going to be mad, but look, the economic reality of it is what it is. And, you know, not to be that guy as well, Nick, but like listen, money's tight for a lot of people. It's tight for me. But when I look at video games, I value them at a very high level in my life. They are very important to me. And am I really going to let $1.66 a month, which is what the $20 increase for Essentials cost, really get me in a hissy fit, right? Like it is for a lot of people. I get it, guys. I get that we all want, you know, games to be free and be cheap, and I'll have all these companies be very consumer friendly, and I think that they are consumer friendly in ways, but some ways they aren't because they simply can't. If we want games to stay at the level of quality, and this is a bigger topic I'm probably going to get onto, and I'll bounce off real quick, Nick, so I don't get too ranty, but if we want things to be of a high quality, if we want games to continue to grow in scope, to grow in innovation, to grow in the way that things are done, the reality of that is it requires more employees than it ever has. This isn't 1990 where you can make Final Fantasy VI with 11 people in a year. It's going to require more innovation, more resources, all of this stuff. And if you want Game Pass to be a reality or PlayStation Extra, and you want these things to be viable, they need the revenue to do so that they can keep the content on these services. So while I think it does suck that we're all going to have to pay a little bit more money, it's kind of one of the main reasons why I have no problem paying for my games. If I have to pay a little bit more and be a little bit more informed as a consumer, that's the what I need to do, and I'm fine with that. But I would just urge everybody who is kind of up in arms, to like, this is ridiculous. Just take a quick second, think about the economic realities of everything, and realize that, okay, if I want to continue existing in this industry, space, hobby, whatever you want to call it, not that crazy of a deal, and we all knew it was coming sooner or later.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is the value's still there. You know, if you took all the games you get either at any of these tiers, they would still vastly total it'd be more than what you're paying for the yearly cost. And I'll also say this is I've never paid full price for Essential or Extra yet. So
Yeah.
The deals for these things are going to come. And if whatever your economic situation is, you're a little more price conscious of this stuff, you know, just wait. There's going to be a deal on these for sure, and you won't have to pay these prices. But this is just what's going to happen to everything. You know, every subscription service is going to be more money. You know, the only reason they're so low is because they're trying to pump up those numbers. And then when they do this price increase, they hope that, you know, the numbers they got only, you know, a certain percentage falls off, but the rest are paying this new price. So
Yeah, I mean, Disney Plus is going up to like $13.99 in October or something like that, and when that launched, it was $6.99, and there's ad revenue. This is left, right, and center in the streaming space now. So it's just the reality of it, and I think the quicker we all just kind of accept that, the better. That's not to say that these companies can run wild and charge us what they want, but that's also not going to happen. They're not going to come out and just be like, all right, we're raising it again to 200, because there is a balance, and I don't know. It sucks. What I will say though, Nick, what I think could be a good move on both a PR level and just being consumer friendly, and they have the bean counters over there, so maybe it would be too much damage to their bottom line, but I'd be interested to see Sony come out with a 4th tier on the low end, where it's just online games and cloud storage. If you are a gamer that just doesn't want those extra games, you just want to play your Call of Duty, you want the ability to have cloud saves, why not give us now maybe a $50 a year option that does those two things? You're going to please some people, you're still going to get some money, maybe you'll get some revenue from people that weren't going to subscribe because they didn't want to deal with it. But I think we're kind of getting close to a point where if you're charging 80, 125 and 160 respectively, maybe we do need some sort of value model. Not sure, but I think that could be maybe a nice middle ground for people.
Yeah, the return of
of what
the original. Yeah,
we'll call it PlayStation Minus.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on.
Sure.
We got a price and release date. The price came first, and then the release date came second. I don't know why they did it this way, but the PlayStation Portal is now coming November 15th and will cost you $200. And if you remember, this is the controller with the screen smashed between it that you can use to stream PlayStation games directly to it from your PlayStation. That is a big caveat. John, this is not for me, but what are your thoughts?
I'm down, man. I'm way down. Yeah,
you're gonna have this? You're gonna get it?
Not on release date, but I would be shocked if I don't have it. This is a very, very use case scenario device, right? This isn't the next evolution of PlayStation PSP and PlayStation Vita. This is almost a new vertical that Sony is just trying to get with people with specific use cases, like I said, like me, where I've realized since my kids have all been born, and I think you've kind of seen this on the show, where I get a decent amount of gaming when I get creative with it. And what I mean by that is like, okay, I can pick up my Switch, or I'll plug in my Xbox and I'll start playing Signalis or Pentiment because my son has the PlayStation 5 downstairs. Whatever the case may be, I think this would be a way for me to just enhance and keep playing the games I love in a more viable way, because I am a pushover. My wife, if she asks me to do anything, I will do it immediately. Like last night, she had me disassemble and put together a desk at like 9 p.m. at night for some reason because she wanted it to work off of today. So if she's like, if she's giving me the look, right? And I think any married man or man with a longtime girlfriend knows the look of like, hey, you should spend some time with me. And I'll go, yeah, but see his stars. And she goes, yeah, but snuggle. And I go, yeah, but see his stars. Maybe this is a way that we could kind of compromise. And for $199, I think that's a pretty decent price point. If it was any more than that, I think I'd be out. But I'm pretty sure I can deal with the $199. And while I do like my backbone, it is kind of annoying to have to reconnect to my PlayStation. Somebody texts me, I have to get out of the app, then reconnect to my PlayStation. It's a cool device, but I just having the form factor of the DualSense in my fingertips too is gonna be nice. So I would say yes, Nick. I'll probably have this at some point early next year, if I were to guess.
All right. You're never
that
gonna
makes
get...
sense. You have to admit it makes sense for certain people, just not for you, Mister. I have
I just all these promises of I'm getting it, but just not at releases.
Yeah, I know.
No Armored Core. Now this.
It's more likely that I'll get this at release than Armored Core because I'm not going to buy a game when I don't, when I have 7 games to play. But maybe this, maybe this would be a thing if I don't know. Or maybe when I get my taxes back, something like that. A little treat yourself kind of thing.
All right.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, and our third news item is a sad one. Volition, the creators of the Saints Row series, they released Saints Row last year that you pretty universally panned on this very podcast. They announced on September 1st that they are closing the studio. Embracer, who owns them currently, is closing the studio. Studios can't survive 2 bad games in a row, that's for sure. This and between last year's Saints Row and 2017's Agents of Mayhem, they've had 2 bombs, and even though they're located in an area that's it's not an expensive studio to run as one is like Sony Santa Monica in California. This was in Champaign, Illinois, so it's like the overhead cost of the studio was probably a lot less than other studios, but still, it's sad to hear that there's one less studio out there, and one is as storied as Volition was, who was taking on the same space as Grand Theft Auto and kind of carved out their own little niche series in that same space that was fairly successful until last year. So I think that last point, Nick, is kind of a key one. Volition had such an opportunity, I feel like, in the last 10 years to really get a good foothold in that space, the Grand Theft Auto open sandbox life sim genre, whatever you want to call that, because obviously we haven't had a new GTA since 2013. People are clamoring for the next one, and I feel like if they just kind of stayed the course and released some games that were more of like the Saints Row the Third, or even if you want to take the more grounded approach like Saints Row 2 had, I think that they'd still be around, and I think they would have probably had a decent amount of success. I don't know if you saw these reports, but it seems like when Volition was developing this last Saints Row, they had a lot of meddling and a lot of interference from the upper management of Embracer, kind of saying like, no, we don't want you to do it this way. Make it more group-oriented and bright colors and fun things. That's what the kiddos want nowadays. They want fun, zany things. And, I think I read a report saying they were leaning more towards like a Saints Row 2 feel, which was their grounded one. And maybe trying to capitalize on that Grand Theft Auto void that there was. But yeah, it's a sad thing. Nobody ever, we don't like people ever losing their jobs. But one last thing I'll say is that, I would hate to be owned by Embracer right now, man. Like, they have 129 different game studios right now, which is just unbelievably dumb, in my opinion. Like, you cannot manage that. And Volition being one of the bigger ones, you could definitely say they have more overhead and more costs. And if if you have to save some money, like, that's an easy way to do it off the top. But at the same time, like, if you start getting rid of your storied, talented teams, like, you're going to just be left with a bunch of slop and a bunch of crap. And so, I don't know. Blood's in the water over at Embracer. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more closings, and see them kind of shift how they do things, because they've just been gobbling up over the last 5 years and don't have a lot to show for it. So we'll see. Yeah, it's the interesting point you made about the meddling, because if you remember, the launch trailer was the reveal trailer was a CG trailer, which was very Fortnite inspired. Like, you couldn't tell that was a Saints Row game till the very end, and it was wildly negatively received. So, I mean, if the Embracer was pushing that, whoops.
Yeah, and it just seems like a company that doesn't quite understand the video game space. Like, that's telling their teams to, make games in different ways. Like, that's a big no-no. Buying everything possible, having weird, like, if you have 129 teams, Nick, that means you have theoretically at least 129 games in development. And if you have those, you're going to be cannibalizing your own sales. Like, sure, there's different genres and things, but it's just, I don't know, it's an unwieldy beast over there. And, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to have Embracer probably be in the news for a little bit here.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure we'll hear more of their studios going bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And then our last rumor, I don't know the credibility of this one, but it came up, and it is something, your very own PlayStation pals have talked about before. And that is, the Snitch is reporting that God of War Ragnarok DLC is coming. No specifics, and whether it's an expansion, is it Burning Shores or is it Miles Morales? We don't know.
Right.
But it's about 60% done, slated for next year. John, we briefly touched upon this when we talked about God of War, about how we believe if there is an expansion, it will be very Atreus-based, given where the story left things there. We won't get into too many spoilers about that, but how credible do you think this is, John?
I think it's pretty credible. I mean, the Snitch, I don't remember specifically what was the rumor that he had, the big rumor he had a little while ago, but I think he nailed that one.
I think he had Rise of Ronin.
Okay, I think there was something else, like a big one, but I'd have to go back and check. But I definitely believe that God of War could be being worked on. It's, Sony's probably #1 critically acclaimed series right now. I personally think we don't need it. I kind of would rather see the series just go into the next big arc that they want to do, or whatever the case is. But it makes total sense. Atreus is now older, more capable. We played as him in Ragnarok itself, and it would be a really effective way to kind of bridge the universes to wherever you want to take the series now. Whether it's Atreus is going to take the full reins, and there might be some sort of narrative in there to kind of usher Kratos away, or not, or it's just kind of a way for us to get a little bit more Atreus. Kratos is going to stick around. We're all going to go to Egypt and have a grand old time killing Anubis. You don't know. But I think it's legit. I think we'll see it probably whenever Sony decides to do their next big thing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, my DEF CON level didn't come true. You just reminded me of that for August. No showcase. But also all the other Sony studios have been kind of doing these half projects. And Insomniac, if we got that Last of Us multiplayer, Naughty Dog, but, Sucker Punch did Iki Island. We just got Burning Shores. So all their other studios are kind of doing these half projects. So it wouldn't surprise me that if, their best-selling franchise also gets, the same treatment.
And I mean, I can definitely, I think back to my favorite scene of that entire game, which is, when Atreus does go off on his own adventure. I mean, it's a perfect spot to start a game, right? Like, you start the game with Kratos going, Loki can go, but Atreus stays here in my heart. And then the camera follows Loki, and we're off on whatever his journey is. We see it and experience it, and then go from there. But I mean, hey man, God of War was my game of the year last year. I am more than happy. What was it? I don't know it was, because I didn't do Elden Ring until this year. So I'm always happy to revisit that stuff. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. I mean, if they do it, it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, of course. Could you imagine if it wasn't? What happened?
So that'll be exciting if that is in fact true, because definitely on the single player front, Sony could use a little more announcements.
Yes, they could. Nick, a little pop bet, and we'll see if it's a pop bet, because I don't know what your feelings are. But if you had to say Burning Shores or Miles Morales type expansion, which one are you going with? Or is it just a little add-on, or is it its own standalone thing?
I don't know. Insomniac is such a voodoo that I don't think it would be a full-fledged game of 15 to 20 hours that Miles Morales was. That it's more of a DLC add-on and then the playbook probably will apply is God of War Ragnarok will be a PlayStation Plus extra game, and then lead right into this DLC.
Okay,
that seems more likely to me than them doing a 20-hour standalone game, but I'd be fine either way. That's for sure.
All right, well, you want to do a PlayStation Pals pop bet? I'll take the standalone.
Okay, sure.
All right, cool.
All right, so that's it for news. Final thing, and that is the future of the show. In our time off, we got a lot of feedback, and I appreciate everyone that emailed in or talked to us. Other Nick, Ryan, Jesse, Mark. A lot of people had a lot of things to say. Some of it conflicting as to where we should go.
Not Jake.
But yeah, so one of the big feedbacks we got was the name. Mark was talking about that, and John and I have been in agreement for that for a very long time. You just can't, if this was a profitable show, you couldn't be named PlayStation. You can't have that in your name. Nobody else does that. So a name change and a logo change are coming. John and I just need to really figure that out. What we want that to be, because that'll be kind of a big push to all of our social media platforms to change the name and get that all out at once. And I am going to use that time to, that's when video should be coming. That's when we can explore, a lot of suggestions about Patreon. I don't know if we have enough listeners to start a Patreon, but it is something we could explore to at least recoup maybe the hosting of the podcast cost.
Sure.
Yeah, we're exploring all those things. And also that the show is going to move publishing dates. So we are now going to publish every Tuesday. So expect new episodes going forward, even from the one this one is posted, to be on Tuesday. So Tuesday's show might be a little light, given we only had a couple of days. But
I just want to make sure, Nick. So you wanted to do Tuesday, not record Tuesday, publish Wednesday. I just want to make sure you're comfortable, since you do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I'm fine with publishing on a Tuesday.
Okay.
So cool. expect that going forward, the same weekly cadence of our regular show, and then again when we nail down a name change, we'll announce that, and then you'll probably see and if you didn't listen, you'll be like, why did everything change? But that's coming. And we also got a lot of feedback of becoming a more general gaming podcast. I'm still up in the air on whether I want to approach that, because even though John is a filthy trader right now playing PC and Xbox games, our allegiances are always going to be PlayStation. It's the only current gaming platform I have, and it's our preferred way to play. And I'm afraid if someone listens and finds us and starts listening, they're like, wow, they are really into PlayStation. They're not talking Starfield, they're talking Spider-Man 2, So I don't know. We'll see. Because if we do go a more general gaming route, then we won't be talking about PlayStation Plus extra games or essential games that get announced, or very, very Sony specific news. Unless it applies to everything.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a big thing that we can, pull the audience with. If there is anybody that can take a quick couple minutes and just send us a quick email. It doesn't have to be long or anything. Just say, would you rather us shift to a more generalized discussion, or do you appreciate that we try to cover PlayStation as in depth as we can? Because we're kind of, at least I'm open to either, but yeah, we want to make sure that we're doing right by the people that we do this for. So let us know.
Yeah, and so and our two big listeners did, and they were both the opposite. So
yeah.
And we're just a PlayStation. It's just a PlayStation slant. Obviously, we have no problem talking anything else. So I'm not. If John does decide to start playing Starfield, he can bring Starfield, just like he's brought Tears of the Kingdom. If there's other games and he wants to talk about it, I always want us to talk about things that we're excited about. But again, it's usually PlayStation stuff, so that's
right.
Just how it works. So I don't remember whatever Tuesday is. I think it's the 11th. Expect an episode, and then just the weekly cadence after that as we kind of cover all the big games of fall. So
the 12th, just not that it matters, but the 12th.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there you go. September 12th, new show, new episodes.
Yeah, 2.0. 2.0.
Yeah, and then the format will be kind of what I briefly talked about, is John and I will use the 6 things as a maximum. If John just wants to bring one thing a week, or I do, or wants to bring nothing, and the other person just takes the lead, that can happen as well. We're not going to we're only
get ready.
We're not going to do light topics.
We're going to talk about 2B every week, Nick.
Oh,
Get
my
ready.
God.
Yeah, Nier
It's
Automata.
fine. It's
all
fine.
day.
If you think you can do it.
I don't want to stare at you across the table when I'm talking about 2B for the fourth time. I don't.
What crossover is she in now? Just tell me that.
Not enough.
So yeah, that's how the show is gonna work. But yeah, until we get the name change, kind of expect the same old show. Just we might talk a little bit more about specific topics and a little less about individual topics. So, yeah, that's it. So that is 6 things, John. We almost did a 2-hour podcast. So.
Well, it felt good, man. It felt like I was stretching my legs, kind of using some muscles I haven't used in a while. So it felt good. Happy to be back. Happy to, kind of tweak some of our stuff and, get ready to prove that my opinions are vastly better than yours. So I'm happy to keep that going.
We'll see. But
Yeah.
you have to play games that come out.
Oh, stop it! I'm doing my best.
All right. Do you have anything to tease for next week? Next Tuesday?
No, man. I obviously excited to get back to Sea of Stars. I just got my 4K version of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in the mail while we were talking, so I'm very excited to pop that in tomorrow. Going to order some Jets Pizza, watch that, and probably not talk about it on the show. So I'm not teasing anything there, but I'm just excited. So no, it's more Sea of Stars for me, and if I get crazy and resubscribe to Game Pass, there's one game I'll be checking out. I'm sure you'll know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of that game, that is coming next week because I definitely want to talk about it. The reviews, the discussion around Starfield, what the bigger picture is for, the game and Xbox as a whole as they look to finally have the game. Or do they? I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to on the internet. It goes back and forth.
David Jaffe says it's one of his top 3 games of all time.
Yes, I saw that.
okay, but
So yeah,
I loved it. It was titled too, God of War creator. It's like, all right, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a Bethesda game. I think that'll sum up the most of our discussion. But since this show started on Starfield being one of the 6 things, we got to talk about it for sure. Yeah. And probably Armored Core as well. I want to talk about Armored Core, as that is out now too. Reviews are out. Want to talk about that, and then just from the gaming front, I'll just probably check in about Baldur's Gate, and if I have any funny anecdotes or funny stories of my playthrough in it, I'll try and not be too spoilery about the bigger stuff. But yeah, I think that's how it's gonna be. I'm just waiting. They're gonna announce news about Cyberpunk 2.0 next week.
Oh, okay.
Too.
Cool.
They're gonna, because it supposedly is coming before the DLC comes out. So
yeah. Well, do you think we're gonna get any Spider-Man 2 news soon? Because they've been posting a lot of shit lately. I'm sure you've seen all that.
Yeah, all the different characters. Did you see the big kerfluffle about Sony posting about that game? That became a
19
big joke.
inches of Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so
I saw somebody saying, I can't wait for 19 inches of the lizard, and 19 inches of Peter, and all right, guys.
Yeah, so I think it was the PlayStation UK tweeted about the collector's edition, and their phrasing was like, "Are you ready for 19 inches of Venom?" Which is the height of the actual statue. But obviously, this being the internet, we all took it very sexually, including all these other companies started touting about how many inches their collector's edition items are, and so it was just a kind of a, the internet can be horrible. But
sorry, I'm just reading the actual tweet now. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It says, treat yourself to 19 inches of Venom and more with Spider-Man. That's so good.
Yeah, so it's just great. And again, the internet is usually, a horrible, reactionary, just the worst takes. But this was actually a pretty good one, as everyone kind of had fun with this silly one. So
yeah. I didn't realize there were still versions of that available. I should get myself one.
You want 19 inches of Venom?
I would love 19 inches of Venom. Never mind. It's in pounds. I don't know what pounds means and all this fake money. Not real money.
I'm sure it's available in the States
sure
as well,
too.
but
I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, and also the lead up to that game. I mean, I'm assuming we're getting a state of play for it eventually here.
Yeah.
So it just again, we're a month away from Spider-Man, which is that game's just gonna sneak up and be out and consume my life. So.
Yep. We're in the thick of it, buddy. We're in the thick of it.
We are. And so, for the song that I'm leaving you on today, it is from Baldur's Gate 3. It is called Down by the River. This plays during the character customization screen, so I heard it so much. And it's a good song. It's got some vocals in it, so it's a very folky and fantasy-like. It's great. And this is by Borislav Slavov. So enjoy.
Sorry.
I like
sounds like the exact kind of a guy that would write a song called Down by the River.
Yeah. So enjoy the song, and again, we will be back September 12th with our normal show and have up to 6 things to talk about. So we're glad to be back. Are you glad to be back, John?
So glad.
All right. So yeah, stay tuned for more of our voices. So all right. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Hanging moon in fog, mist will lead where you belong. Sweep me off my feet, down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by the river. Pinky amber, swirling down. Just leave the flames and take a chance to be with me tonight. Take my hand and hold it tight, 'cause you and I are everywhere. The night is young, we're going down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by the river. Down, down, down by the river. Don't wake me up, child.